press that and see what
Okay,
happens.
let her rip. I will pull up
Look at
the
that.
stream as well so I can see what the chat is
Yeah,
doing
I
if
see
you
our
get chat.
faces. That's always a good sign. And
Ooh.
hopefully my wife is QAing me to make sure my audio is good because I discovered this at one point. I adjusted my gain on my mic and didn't realize that it was affecting anything until one of my friends texted my guest instead of me. I don't know why he didn't just text me to say, "Hey, we can't hardly hear Nate." And it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, let me just turn this little knob." So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Good morning, Kat. How are you?
Good morning. I'm hot.
I'm
It's
sorry.
warm, but I'm good. How are you?
Well, see, and I'm cold because, as we were just talking about, Minnesota went from like high 90s and humidity to, well, let's try going back to fall weather. And then I assume that means next week it'll be back nearing 100 because why not? I mean, there was a period, I don't know if it was last week, week before, where it was hotter here than it was in Austin, Texas. And I felt like I had some bragging rights for that. But it's the joy of seasons. Yes.
You want to trade?
I mean, I don't mind. I'm okay with 80. 80 is good. It's the 90s and the humidity I don't like. I don't like humidity. I melt. So I couldn't
Oh,
handle
no,
your
I love it.
birthplace.
I love it. I
Humidity?
love it. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Dry heat gives me a nosebleed every time. I
Interesting.
cannot handle it. Like when I go to conferences in Vegas or
Uh-huh.
whatever, will sleep with a wet towel over a chair in
Okay.
my room to try to like get some kind of moisture
Humidity.
because like guaranteed
Yeah.
I'm gonna wake up with a nosebleed. I can't do it. I grew up in a swamp. I like humidity, like
Sure.
96 degrees and humid is comfortable for me if it's windy and I can go inside and get some air conditioning.
Right.
But like, yeah, nothing like sitting on a porch in the humidity with like a nice cold, cheap beer.
Yes.
That's that's a good day
I
for me.
I, I can see that. Yeah, it's if you have to do anything. You know,
Oh yeah, I'm not moving.
no.
That's no, I'm not doing
No.
anything. We're not getting
Yeah.
anything done in that
Right.
weather.
No.
Absolutely not.
Pay the neighbor kid to mow the lawn. Like we're not doing that crap. Forget that noise.
Yeah, absolutely not.
So Kat, why don't you, for someone who doesn't know who you are, and I can't imagine who that is, what's your origin story? How did you get into this crazy developer avocado business? And we will get to the mullet at some point for sure, but
Sure.
please give us your origin story.
So yeah, I don't have a CS degree. I dropped out of college. I went to college for biochemical engineering, and I dropped out, which was the right decision for me and not the right decision for everybody else. But I grew up around programming. My dad's an engineer, so I already like kind of knew what I was doing. But I taught myself some stuff. I started freelancing as a web developer for a while, then decided I was tired of slinging PHP on WordPress and Joomla templates for people and went to a boot camp and learned Python. Uh, I went to Code Fellows in Seattle, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just decided, maybe it's time to get like a big girl tech industry job instead of just being stressed out doing contracts all the time. And I started working at JFrog as a an embedded Linux developer, which was, yes, extremely out of my depth at the time. So I had to learn a lot very quickly, a lot of things that I had never been taught. But my team built this really cool proof of concept demonstrating fast over-the-air updates for cars. So the way most cars update now, there's like, I don't know, anywhere between like 4 and 7 or 8 computers in most cars these days. They can't update remotely. They have to be
Hmm.
taken into a service center and the computer has to be flashed. Like there is no way to actually update it. And somebody is probably listening and going, my Tesla can do it. Yes, I know that your Tesla can do it. And some Mercedes can do it. And some BMWs can do it. But the overwhelming majority of cars can't. So we built this.
That's so
This is
cool.
a tiny little self-driving car. So there's a little camera on the front. This is a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus with a compute module. And so we built ourselves a car, and that thing can update over the air. It can do an application level update in about 30 seconds without interrupting the driver. It can happen while the car is moving. it can do a full firmware update in about 5 minutes, also without interrupting the driver, which was obviously very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a bunch of requests to talk about it, to like explain this at conferences. And there were only two other engineers on the team, and they very much did not want to be on stage uh, at all. They had no interest. So I did it. And after a couple of conference talks about it, JFrog hired a new like head of DevRel. He hired Stephen Chin, and he saw me talk, I guess, and flew out to Seattle and poached me. So I
Best way
don't
to
write
do it.
production. It is. It worked really well for me. I don't write production code anymore, which is good for me and for you
Right.
because nobody really wants to see that. Uh, but I do get to write whatever I want,
Hmm.
So like, am I helping build a product? No. But am I having considerably more fun
Yeah.
writing
Yeah.
whatever I want to write? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you with that one. It's so fascinating to me because we've seen some of these arguments lately about, the one true way to be in software, and I've actually had to I guess counsel some of my grad students about this because they have this imposter syndrome kind of thing going on.
Sure.
And part of what annoys me is that this traditional approach to computer science of getting a computer
Mm,
science degree is something that did not even exist 30 years ago in most universities.
right.
And so I find it really kind of ironic that now we're all of a sudden deciding like, oh, if you don't have a C degree, like to your point, I learned C++ as an undergraduate. I've written
Hmm.
0 lines of C++ in anger. So did it prepare me to be a software engineer? I mean, I guess, but I had to, I get thrown into the deep end like, oh wow, I've never done this before. Well, figure it out. Like, okay. I don't see how it's any different, but that's just me. So
It's different skills, I think.
yeah,
Like computer science grads have at first, if you're comparing a fresh computer science grad and a fresh boot camp grad, the fresh computer science grad is going to have like a much better grasp of the fundamentals.
sure.
Okay, just like the actual core concepts of computer science, they are going to understand better than that boot camp grad. But you know what they can't do? Write production code.
Right.
They can't do it. You
Right.
know,
Takes time.
they it takes time. They don't know how to use any of the like weird modern tools that we have now. They don't know what DevOps is. They don't know how to use Ansible. They don't know how to use like Jenkins or whatever. And but eventually, after 2 or 3 years in the industry, those two people are going to have like very similar skill sets.
Right.
Like they will catch up with each other. So I don't know, you get a different starting point, but I don't
Sure.
think one is fundamentally better than the other.
Right.
I did fine, and I used to be a bartender. So
I have questions about that too, but we'll get to that. Well, I mean, some of the best developers I know were not computer science undergraduates. One of my buddies years and years ago, he was a chemistry major, and I think it's you either have that sort of problem solving, I want to tinker with this puzzle mindset, or you don't. And
yeah.
your undergraduate degree, I mean, I had to do math stuff that I've never used, but I took some philosophy that I found incredibly effective as a developer. So yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating how we get into those arguments, but
Yeah, I think at least in engineers who have moved into DevRel, I know more developer advocates that don't have computer science degrees than I do developer advocates with computer science degrees. And I think
sure.
that's partially because all of us have worked like in something else. We've worked in sales or we've worked in the service industry. I came from the service industry, and that selects for a certain type of soft skill
Yeah,
that is really important for being a developer advocate, but like less important. I do think it's still important for software engineers to have strong soft skills, but it's not something that makes or breaks your career as
right,
often as it does for developer advocates. So
right.
um,
Well, I think
yeah, most of
what you realize so quickly in this industry is skill sets have a different timeline. So your technical
mm-hmm.
skills turn over every 3 to 5 to 7 years. You've got other skills like the soft skills that they're going to last you an entire career, and
Yeah,
having some talent there, or at least recognition that it's important to be able to work with other human beings, kind of matters. We're way past the one person banging on a keyboard in a windowless room. I mean, that just doesn't happen on software projects anymore.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Like, I mean, you see some open source projects start that way, but they're
Right.
never going to succeed if they stay that way.
Not
You
at all.
know, you can't build a community around like one lone wolf hacker in a basement.
No, no, that's not going to end well for any of us. Oh.
No.
So I do have two bartending questions just to randomly throw out since you did bring that up. And,
Okay.
and one is was there ever a drink that somebody would order that you just like roll your eyes like, oh God, you're gonna make me make
Mimosas.
this?
No,
Mimosas.
sorry, not mimosas. Mojitos.
Oh,
I hated making
the
mojitos.
muddling.
Yeah, because they take an eternity, and I can only do like that. That's the only thing I can do when I'm
Sure.
making a mojito. I can't do anything
No
else.
multitasking.
And like 9 times out of 10, it was being ordered by somebody who's not going to tip well. Like they the dollar a drink tipping strategy does not apply to mojitos for
Mm,
me because it's so much more labor,
right.
and I can only serve that one customer at
Right.
that time. So I don't like making mojitos. I don't like drinking them anymore
Mm,
as a result. Um, so if you order a mojito in a super busy bar, you're you're kind of a jerk unless you're at a tiki bar. Like if you are
sure.
at a tiki bar,
Sure.
by all means, order the mojito.
Right.
They're used to slanging mojitos, but
Right.
like if you're at a dive bar and it's busy, or you're just in like a college bar, a sports bar, whatever, and it's a Friday night and it's packed, please don't.
No. No. Is there a underappreciated cocktail that you wish people would order? Like, if you try this, you would be very happy.
My two favorite cocktails, one of them is very popular still. It's the Corpse Reviver number 2.
Oh, number two.
Uh, corpse, the corpse. There is a Corpse Reviver number 1. There are
Okay.
multiple Corpse Revivers. They're not good. The only one that matters is the number 2. The only
Okay.
one anybody ever orders is the number 2. It's a gin cocktail that involves like aerosolized absinthe.
Okay.
It's very good, but it's also like it's a lot of people's like baby's first absinthe
Okay.
drink. So it is very, very popular still. Um, the Last Word is another favorite cocktail of mine. That one is very old, and until pretty recently hasn't been very popular. It's
Okay.
very much coming back in a big way, which I think is fantastic. But it's gin, um, lime juice, chartreuse, and
Ooh.
maraschino liqueur.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good, but it's has not been popular until
Okay.
recently. I have a thing about gin.
I can
A lot
tell.
of people think that they hate gin, and I don't think that they actually hate gin. I think what happens is people go to like they go to a cheap bar
Mm,
when they're young, and they decide I want to try gin, so I'm going to order a gin and tonic, and they order that with the most expensive gin the cheap bar has, which
mm-hmm,
is probably Bombay Sapphire.
mm-hmm.
Bombay Sapphire is an aggressively floral gin, and it has a very distinctive taste that I
Right.
personally hate.
Sure.
So people do that. They order a G&T with Bombay and they think they hate gin, but they
Right.
don't. They just hate
That type.
aggressively floral
Right.
gin, and
Right.
that's fine. I'm not a big fan of most aggressively floral gins either, but there are lots of gins that are very sweet. So,
I totally relate to that. I've had some very bad G&Ts, and then I very
mhm.
distinctly having one in Amsterdam that, let's get more of these because they were
Yeah.
just delicious and refreshing and like, please more. And away we go. So RL Lacoste wants to know if you have a favorite brand of gin that you would recommend.
My favorite, so my default like daily driver is Hendrix
Okay.
because it is reasonably priced and it's not aggressively floral. It's made with cucumber peels and rose hips. My actual favorite gin right now is Monkey 47,
Monkey.
which is it's German. It's pretty expensive though.
Okay.
It's not like outrageous, but it's like
Sure.
$80 a bottle.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, Monkey 47 is my favorite right now. I'm also a big fan of Empress 1908,
Okay.
which is a purple gin made with butterfly pea flower. And so the gin is like this gorgeous like indigo.
Wow.
But if you add an acid like tonic water or lime juice, it turns like fuchsia. Like it turns this like neon purple color. It's very pretty. That gin is also slightly sweet by
Okay.
itself, so it's really good for a gin and tonic.
All right. Well, see, now I got some ideas. We, over the course of the last couple of years, we've been expanding our home liquor collection. Would be the politest way to put
Mm,
it. We actually, I have a shared list with my wife that is the whiskey list, and so it's various whiskeys that we either have or want to get. And I've been very impressed at how good she is at tracking these things down. My birthday presents this year were almost entirely whiskey. It was not
nice.
entirely planned that way, but very welcome nonetheless. So,
Nice. That's a good gift.
right?
I will say, um, for people listening, please stop buying people Maker's Mark as a gift when
Mm,
you hear that they like bourbon.
mm,
It's it's fine. It's
yeah,
just not it's that's all though. It's fine
right.
and it also has an extremely distinctive flavor that a lot of people just don't like.
Do you have a favorite
Uh,
bourbon?
Yeah. Right now, my favorite bourbon is from Memphis. It's Huling Station's
Fueling Station. Okay.
straight, yeah, Huling Station's straight bourbon.
Okay.
It is not the best bourbon I've ever had, but it is the best bourbon I've ever had for $30 a
Oh,
bottle.
yeah, that's nice.
So it's incredible. It's very, very easy to drink. If I don't have a budget, my favorite bourbon is Booker's.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, the older you get, the more you appreciate good whiskey, and
Yeah.
you lose the taste for anything that's reasonably priced very fast. Like I think it was Brian Getz told me this. He said if you ever think you want to get into scotch, go get some really bad scotch, and then you'll never want to drink scotch again, because once you go down that rabbit hole, it's oh God, this was amazing. How much was that? Oh, $50. Oh, a pour?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So I did make a
Yeah.
mistake once of having a scotch that was older than me, and it kind of ruined me. Yeah,
I bet. I never got like super into scotch. My dad is super into scotch.
yeah,
We have scotch on the bar cart, but we don't actually that's more of like my husband's
sure.
thing. My default scotch is Lagavulin 16 because it's just like that's the one I've found that I like and I can drink that consistently and they have it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has Lagavulin 16.
Mm,
It's expensive, but everyone has
worth it.
it and it's yeah, I think it's worth it.
Yeah. So you're into the
You know?
peaty scotch. That's good to know.
I
See,
yeah, I
I
want
knew
my
there's a
scotch
reason
to
I
taste like
vibed with you.
smoked dirt.
Yeah,
Smoked dirt.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I want.
Rumor has it they're running out of peat. So I'm concerned, right? I mean, like, whoa, like we need to make more peat. I
We
don't know
need
how.
how do we make more
I
peat?
think you need a lot of it. I think it takes a lot of time. I think that's the problem. But
Crap.
Eagle Rare Bourbon. Yes, I would agree with that from our El Lacoste. I that is also one of my favorites
Mm.
to say the least. But you see, the challenge with buying good whiskey then is if you are going to make a mixed drink, then you're like, whoa, don't use the good stuff. Like if you're going to make
Don't
a
use the good stuff.
Kentucky
Oh yeah,
Mule, like
no.
no, don't put that aside. That's why we have this thing called Jameson. But
In our house, it's Jack Daniels because
oh
I'm
sure,
from Tennessee.
of course.
So in our house, the default mixing whiskey is Jack. Unless I'm making a whiskey sour, like a nice
Okay,
whiskey sour with like egg white, then I will use like that's when I'll sacrifice some of the sipping bourbon. Like
sure.
the Huling Station, I will use for
Okay.
that. The Bookers, I will not. But
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Again, that is one of those hobbies that just gets more expensive over time if you're not careful. And
it is,
but I think that's
yeah.
true of like everything. As we get older, we have toys that just cost more.
Oh yeah. Regrettably, I got into cameras.
Mm. I
So uh, I keep buying lenses.
was gonna say, how much glass do you have?
Well, I fortunately a lot of it is very cheap.
Okay.
Like this is an Industar 104, which is like an old Soviet lens.
Cool.
It looks like garbage. I love it because it looks terrible. The colors are wrong. It's like it can be very sharp, but it doesn't want to be. You have to really fight it. Uh, this is a weird Japanese soft focus lens that I actually really love, but it does not work well as like a webcam
Sure.
thing. The worst one is this 100 mm soft focus lens. This is the worst lens I think that has ever been made. It is like it's actually unusable.
Oh,
It
fantastic.
it it was also like $30.
Well, there you go.
So,
There you go.
it's pretty hard to be mad at. The only one I have that's expensive is the one that's on here right now, which is a Sony FE f1.8 35 mm.
Yeah,
So
there seems to be a lot of crossover in our industry between that. Like uh, do we just like to geek out on anything and everything? Is that why we get attracted to these things?
I guess like we spend so much time, especially over the pandemic, we spent so much time like staring at ourselves on screens,
Yeah,
and we needed ways to like make ourselves look more interesting, make
sure.
ourselves stand out from our backgrounds more, stand out from our peers more, and that's part of it, I
Hmm.
think. But also, it's something to fiddle with,
Right.
and I don't know about you, but I love fiddling with things, so it's something to fiddle with, and that's why I got into cheap lenses, not
Sure.
not really expensive ones, because it's
Sure.
actually not that expensive for me to own like a ton of glass. Like this is a 35 mm CCTV camera
Oh,
lens, which gets this like really wild, like super swirly bokeh on it, but it is also like not usable as a webcam lens. But yeah, I think we just like to fiddle
yeah.
with stuff. It's it is an expensive hobby, but I think I've spent less money on camera and lenses than I did when I played Magic the Gathering.
Oh, I'm impressed. Well played.
But yeah, there's a lot of money spent on cardboard.
How do we get in on that? I mean that's got to be a pretty high profit margin, don't you think?
Magic the Gathering?
Yeah, I mean any of those kind of things. It's just well now I've got some friends that are into these destructive board games where you get to play them once and then
Ooh,
they're gone because
I didn't
it's
know this was an option. Tell me
right.
more.
Yeah, I mean I'm only sort of vaguely around the periphery of this because I'm still catching up. Like I've got a friend of mine who when we started getting into Catan, he was like, "Oh no, that's so 3 years ago." I mean, he was already on to some other crazy, German hybrid thing. And there's a few times that I've been around him, and he brings something new. And after the 3 hours, he explains the rules. I'm like, "Well, I gotta go to bed, but thanks." But apparently now there are games that are designed for one play, and so you're literally destroying parts of the game to play the game, which is a brilliant marketing strategy
Oh,
because
for sure.
boy, that was
Because
so much
if you want to
fun.
play that again with new friends, you gotta buy another one. Like,
Yeah, it makes subscription software look like passe. Like
yeah, what are we doing? We need software that you can straight up
this,
only use
we're,
once.
we're gonna delete your database if you don't keep paying us. I mean, I don't know. It's just there's clearly a
Look, don't
market
give
there.
AWS any
Oh,
ideas.
that's a good point. Sorry, shouldn't have said that out loud. Damn it. Good
But
time.
that's cool. I would like to know what that is. So if you find out what that board game is later, will you like just DM me?
I will.
Because
I'll get you more data on that point because I do not remember the name of it, but I have some pretty hardcore gaming friends that I'm sure would be happy to supply me with that information. So I will track that down for you and make sure you get your hands on that.
yeah, that sounds rad.
That's fun.
I miss playing board games, but there's been a pandemic,
Yeah.
so haven't really been seeing people until very
Right.
recently. And also, I live in Seattle now, and most of my friends don't live here. Most of my
Sure.
friends still live back home in Memphis, but my best friend is moving here in January,
Yay.
and he's also a gigantic nerd, so I'm extremely excited. I should apologize in advance to my husband, who will find us completely insufferable.
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, they married us, so what do they expect, right?
Yeah, like that's
Yeah,
you knew what you were signing up for.
100%.
You knew.
100%. Yeah, no, I have been involved in conversations with my peers and had them basically, we get into one of these weird ass conversations and just kind of look around the room and I'm like, most of us are married. Like, how did that happen? Like what? I can see like one date just to sort of a pity
Figure
date
it
or
out.
whatever, right? But
But
then, wow, you dated me enough that you're willing to marry me, and then
yeah,
many of us have reproduced, and it's like, how'd that happen?
it's not what I predicted when I was in high school.
Nah,
So like
no.
not even. No, I'm not sure how anybody tolerates me, but I guess people find me likable. And I mean, he found me likable enough to stay with me for like 11 years.
Right.
So
Right. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. I mean, I've made that comment to my wife multiple times. I'm like, hey, you knew what you were signing up for. You know, this
we
isn't this.
married up. We
Oh,
married up.
I think that is shockingly true for the vast majority of us. And again, it's one of those things where I'm constantly puzzled by it. It's like, how did I pull that off? Because and I have no social skills when it comes to that. And like, I got none
No,
of
I'm
that.
a basement dwelling neckbeard, like a terminally online basement dwelling neckbeard, and I married a professional fencing coach.
I didn't even know that was a thing. There you
Oh
go.
yeah.
You've taught me more today.
Oh yeah, he owns a fencing club here in Seattle. He
Wow.
teaches kids to stab each other competitively.
Wow. See, now I could see you relating to that.
Yeah. I don't actually fence though. I used
Okay.
to.
Okay.
But I never got into it enough to compete. Also, it's expensive.
Right.
Also, it screws up my hair.
Mm,
So like having it tied up under that mask is
sure.
just like it's not the most fun. It's very sweaty sport, but it is extremely fun to watch.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I will be at the Olympics next month, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to watch Olympic fencing in person.
Wow. Tell me more
So
about that. How did you secure Olympic privileges?
I have a press pass.
Yay,
Um,
you.
yeah, so I will be there with Michael's best friend. He owns fencing.net, which is the, as far as I know, only news outlet for the sport of fencing.
Okay.
So that's how we got in.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
I will be there to take pictures of the fencing.
Oh, heck yeah. Although I will admit, last time I watched the Summer Olympics and watched some of the fencing, it mostly seemed like 8 or 9 seconds of frantic activity and both participants exalting the fact that they scored a point. And it,
Yes, you see a lot of that,
yeah,
especially in epee, where like the entire body is a valid target area.
hmm
You see a ton of that because you can get a double touch, like both fencers can
sure,
score a touch at the same time, but you can't both score a touch at the same time in foil or saber.
okay,
So you do see like the fencers both like react, like pull back and scream, but that's less of an I'm sure I got the touch thing and more of an I need to release some like pent up energy
sure,
thing. They're taught to do that. They're
okay,
specifically taught to do that.
okay,
Lots of athletes are in lots of sports. It's also very common in kendo.
oh sure.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Well, and you certainly see it in other sports, like soccer slash football, where you're almost taught if you feel contact, just fall to the ground and grab your ankle, and then hope
Oh, I
that
was
the
taught that when I played basketball. Like if
sure.
if somebody was guarding me too aggressively, like if it could conceivably be that she like bumped me with her hip or her butt, I was told to immediately like
Oh,
fall out and be dramatic about it.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I remember playing high school football, and I was on defense. It must have been a punt or something, and so we were the receiving team. And this kid lines up across from me, grabs right inside my shoulder blades, and then falls to the ground. Right, so he grabbed onto my shoulder pads and fell to the ground, and of
Good
course took
Lord.
me with me because it's like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
that's a that's a holding penalty right there. Of
that's
course,
holding. Yeah.
they don't see it, right? Because the kid very cleverly does it inside the shoulders or whatever. And I just thought, oh, okay, so that's how you're gonna block me. Cool, cool. All right,
Cool,
I'll
cool, cool,
remember that,
cool,
little kid.
cool.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, high school sports coaches are like the absolute shadiest about
oh yeah,
encouraging kids to do stuff like that.
cheat.
Because, like, yeah, to just openly cheat. Like,
Hmm.
the thing I was told to do is also cheating. Like, that's cheating. That is trying to manufacture a personal foul.
Right,
That's what that is.
right.
And
I hear you.
I don't. I don't think a college coach would have told me to do that,
Probably
but
not.
my middle school and high school coaches,
Right, right.
yeah, absolutely, because the refs aren't going to see that.
No, well, and you are taking advantage of the fact that the reffing at that level is
Not
inconsistent.
that's a really kind way to say it.
That's what I have to say when I'm on the sidelines watching my son's soccer team, because you see these instances where like that person is offsides by 3 yards. This is not close. This is not a hard call, or like this happened yesterday in a game he had. One of our defenders decided that in the open field, I mean, he was one guy around him with the ball, and there was nobody else around him. He basically just like full arm shift this kid and knocked him to the ground. Gave up a free kick. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like that isn't even subtle. Like you didn't even try to hide it. You might as well have just literally tackled him, and that would have been just as effective and would have also resulted in a penalty. But you have nothing that you can defend yourself with there, kid. That was just dumb.
Yeah, that's that's yikes.
Yeah, 14-year-old
That's big.
boys. I guess, maybe he was
Kids are
frustrated.
kids are really stupid. Kids are super stupid. I was so dumb when I was a teenager. Like, I mean, I'm still an idiot, but like, I'm more tactful about it now.
Right. More subtle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But teenagers, no, they just
My teenager once so we have a standing rule in our house that if you don't remember the last time you showered, you have to go shower. Right. So if anybody
that's a
asks
good rule.
anybody, when is the last time you showered? Can't remember. Okay, go. This was, I don't know how many months or years ago, because time has no meaning in a pandemic.
Sure.
He came downstairs after showering and sat next to my wife, and she looked at him and she's like, "Did you shower?" And he's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Did you use soap?" And he said, "No, I was out of soap." Okay, cool. Did you think we had nothing else in the house? And so she's like, "Back upstairs. We're doing it again." Yeah, but
I
that's,
don't understand the
yeah, I don't either, right?
I guess there's no point in trying to figure out what's going
No,
on inside the brain of a 14-year-old.
no.
So like it's staring into the void, and it
Yeah,
stares back, and
yeah,
just don't even bother.
yeah. No, my son is at camp right now at scout camp, and so I washed his sheets this morning, and I discovered that his iPad was under his pillow. And I thought, oh, that's a good place to keep a piece of electronic equipment, under your pillow. I think I know
Sure.
why you're having a hard time falling asleep, potentially. But,
Yeah. I mean, I fall asleep with my Kindle in bed
totally,
sometimes, but it's
totally.
but it's a Kindle,
Yeah, this was
you know.
under his pillow. Like I think he put it there. Like this is a deliberate thing
That's not a good
stored
place
here.
to store your electronics.
No, no, I guess I did a poor job as a parent explaining to him, how to handle electronic equipment. But what are you gonna do?
Eh, I'm the child of someone who also hoards electronics. So my dad didn't do a good job of teaching me how to handle electronics in a different way, in
Sure.
that I keep them forever.
Oh yeah.
And like,
Do you have a drawer?
oh, I have a closet.
Yeah.
It's a problem. There's like, and I was so close to getting rid of my cable hoard. Like, I don't know, like 9 months ago, I was so
Right?
close to getting rid of my cable hoard. And then like I went to watch something on my VCR, because I still
Oh,
have a
oh my
VCR
God.
that works.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I wasn't getting AV, and I was like, well, that's weird. Like something must be wrong with the composite cable. I don't think I have another one, but let's go dig through the hoard. And by God, there was another composite cable in the hoard.
The system works.
The system works. And now I'm stuck with this cable hoard until I die. I'm going to have to will it to somebody. So, like, if anybody needs a mouse that runs on a serial port, by the way, I also have one of those
Oh,
for no reason,
sure.
if you need it. I got more coax cables than you can shake a stick at. I don't know why I have them. Um, we had to. I did throw out something recently because I
Okay.
was trying. We got symmetrical gigabit fiber, and
Nice.
couldn't figure out like why everything. All of our computers are hardwired, so I couldn't figure out like why I wasn't actually seeing anywhere near a gig. And apparently, it's because almost all of the patch cables in the house were still Cat 5,
Ah,
which it can't do
can't
it.
handle it.
I cannot handle it. So I did throw away all of our Cat 5 and replace it all with Cat 7A.
Well done.
7A is excessive, but I was banking on like I don't want to have to buy new patch
Ever again.
cables ever again, like ever again. So that did happen. Threw away a lot of Cat 5, including a 30-foot spool. I don't know why I
Ooh.
had a 30-foot spool of Cat
Eh,
5,
you
but
never
I
know.
did. You
You know,
never know.
you never know. No, well, it's funny you mentioned that because when the pandemic started and my wife brought stuff home from her office, her docking station doesn't have all the bells and whistles I would have hoped. And I had an old monitor that she could borrow because at the time we didn't know how long this was going to last, right? Oh, this is just going to be a few weeks. Once April comes, I'm still waiting for that. But I actually I think I had to order a cable because the only combination of things I could do between the monitor and her docking station, I somehow did not have one of those cables. And so I had
Oh
to like
no.
rage order something off Amazon. I'm like, I don't know how this is possible. I have like every other possible combination. Yeah, that's good times.
Every other cable conceivable.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And even somewhere like, I didn't even know they made VGA to HDMI. Like, who thought that was a good idea?
Who
Yeah,
thought that was I think I do have I have a DVI-D to HDMI converter that is like I think currently in use actually. So yeah,
I
because this is a 240 hertz monitor that is for some reason DVI-D instead of DisplayPort.
sure,
But
sure. No, I
I
hear
don't
you.
know.
I did take advantage of the pandemic to clean out things from my travel backpack that I had no conceivable use for anymore. But you know how things just
Mm,
gather in there. You're like, well, I might need this at
yeah,
some event, and then you now recognize actually I have no ports on my machine that can actually accept that, so I can get rid of that
yeah. For me, it was like conference swag.
now.
I used to be really bad about taking any conference swag that somebody handed me.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, a couple months ago, I did a mass clean out of like conference t-shirts,
Ooh,
and it was like a large kitchen-sized garbage bag
yeah,
of t-shirts that I
yeah.
had to go like drop off at the Goodwill
Mm-hmm.
box. Like
Mm-hmm.
it it's ridiculous. And so I only kept t-shirts that are a black because I don't wear color. I wear black or white and that's it. And B, from companies whose products I not only like but actually use.
Sure.
So the list of stuff I kept is actually pretty short. Um, it's actually like 3 Heroku t-shirts.
Well done.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
that I have the mental fortitude to do that, but that's kind of what you need to do, honestly, because they do
you
they're
do.
they almost reproduce like rabbits.
They do, and like when you're a developer advocate and like your whole job is going to
Right.
conferences, like you end up with a ton of that stuff.
Mm.
I think I'm just going to not take t-shirts from people anymore at all. Twilio gives out hair ties, which is probably my
Oh,
favorite piece of swag.
sure.
That is actually useful. I have some VMware socks,
Oh yeah, I think I do too. Actually,
so
you mentioned that.
yeah, socks I'm always a fan of. But
Sure.
like, I really don't need more t-shirts. I really don't need more water bottles. You
See,
know.
for me, it was the backpacks. That's where I got in trouble.
Oh yeah, I think I have a Red Hat backpack.
Mm.
I have a Linaro backpack,
Oh,
but that's it. I love the guys at Lenaro though. I love that whole team. Everybody there is very cool and their conference rules. I am very very excited for that conference to return. That is some nerds. They're
that's saying something in our line of work.
very nerdy, and it's always extremely fun that
Nice.
conference. So
Yeah, I got so
yeah.
bad with backpacks that at the start of one conference season, my wife said, two, you can bring home. Two, pick wisely.
Oh, so you just like backpacks are that's
Because
your jam.
I gathered them, because some of them are really good, right? So some you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm not interested in this one. There was a stretch of a couple years there where I didn't have to worry about it at all because the backpacks they weren't great, right?
Those
And
like those cheap like vinyl like ones.
or they have like there's a few that like I mean I'm very particular about backpacks and I've gone through several to kind of this is what I want in a travel bag and I'm still like if I could merge two or three bags together I'd be a very happy human being. So I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten more particular, but I also recognize that my son likes to take my backpacks and so
Sure.
there's kind of this well I know the kid can use it, but I'm looking for the more I need pockets and I need a place for a water bottle and I
I'm unwilling to tolerate a backpack that does not have a slot on the side for a water bottle.
100%. Yep.
I need it.
Yeah.
My current travel backpack is a Timbuk2,
Yep.
and I'm very, very happy with it.
Yep. Well played. Local
It
to
would take
you
a
as
lot.
well. Yep. Yeah.
It would take a lot for somebody to give me something at as free stuff at a conference that like overshadows that.
Yeah.
I don't think
No.
it's doable. I
No.
am very happy with it.
I've got a Manal. I think I got their latest one when they kicked that off last year, which I haven't used yet because I haven't left the house basically. Uh, but yeah, I've been pretty happy with their stuff, all things considered. So
Conferences are coming back though, so you got to remember how to pack a suitcase.
yeah, so how do you feel about that? Are we when what's your spidey sense telling you about when things are going to be normal like?
So KubeCon is happening in person in
That's what I
LA in
hear.
October.
That's what I hear.
They are requiring that if you attend, you cannot attend the in-person KubeCon if you are not vaccinated. So
Excellent.
they will be doing a simulcast online.
Okay.
There will be like a virtual version. I
Sure.
guess they'll just be live streaming our presentations. But I will be there. I am vaccinated, but also I have a concern with respect to people forgetting how to interact with other humans in person.
Yeah.
I'm basing this on my own experiences trying to re-enter society.
Uh-huh.
In that I don't remember how much eye contact is normal
Sure.
anymore. Having an in-person conversation with somebody is uncomfortable. I have a hard time reading body language now.
Okay.
And I expect a lot of that to be an issue. So I think any conference returning to in person needs to have like a keynote, an opening keynote that is like, hey,
People.
so here's how to interact with other humans in
Right.
person. Like,
Right.
do you remember social norms? Do you
Right.
remember how to not hit on each other
Right.
inappropriately in a work context? Like
Personal space.
personal space, like questions that you can't ask strangers, like that kind of stuff. I
Uh-huh.
think is absolutely going to have to be a requirement, or the code of conduct committees for various conferences are going to be like wildly overloaded.
Right.
So
Right.
like I won't be at the all attendees party at KubeCon because I'm
Smart.
expecting it to be a disaster.
Smart.
But I will be like on a rooftop deck somewhere
There you go.
with people I actually know
Mm-hmm.
personally. But yeah, I mean, stuff is happening. KubeCon's going to be in person if you're vaccinated. DevOps UK is supposed to be happening in person in November.
Yep.
Some DevOps days are open for uh, in-person events. I think DevOps Days Zurich is
Okay.
in person. So I guess it's happening Q3, Q4,
Yeah.
but the schedule is going to be absolutely bonkers
Yeah.
with everybody trying to like cram stuff in from the last year and a half.
Right.
Like DevOps Days Buffalo overlaps with KubeCon. So you gotta pick. Are you going to DevOps Days Buffalo or are you
Right.
going to KubeCon?
Right. No, I hear you. I think I've got at least a few events in theory that are in the fall
Yeah.
that are in person. I guess we'll see. I'm still curious at what point our corporate travel ban ends, which theoretically is August, but I guess
Yeah.
we'll find out. So,
And what traveling internationally is like. Like I will
hmm
find out what traveling internationally is like in about 3 weeks,
hmm
but I will be on a flight that is ostensibly only for people attending the Olympics. So
sure,
it will be different and it will not have people on it. But I have flown domestically fairly recently. I went home a couple months ago and it was very weird.
sure.
So uh, not not comfy,
Mm. Yeah,
really.
it's going to be strange because I mean, I until the pandemic, I mean, this is the longest I've gone without being on an airplane in 15 years at least, and
Yeah, same.
it's going to be so weird to go from I knew exactly what time I needed to leave my house based on what time my flight took off, and I mean, it was a science, and I
Yeah.
left, and now it's going to be like, what is
Oh,
this
literally.
line, and how do I interact with you? I mean, yeah, I mean, I've got a new passport now because I renewed my passport as long as I wasn't going anywhere, and now I'm like,
Yeah.
what else is gonna break? Yeah, it's gonna be
It was weird. Like I haven't had to ask a question at the airport in a decade, but
yes,
the but the last time I went to fly home to Memphis, and I have pre-check
hmm
obviously,
of
and
course,
uh, and I couldn't remember if pre-check allowed me to keep my shoes on
sure,
or not. So I had to ask, like, hey, do I have to take my shoes off?
right,
Because it's the pre-check line, so they assume you know what you're doing. So
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
have somebody there that's like yelling all of these instructions
right,
every 30
right,
seconds. like you do in the like
Mm-hmm.
regular lines.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt, I don't know, it was weird. Like I just completely forgot because I haven't done it.
Right.
It's
I hope it's
the
like a
things.
riding a bicycle that we'll all just kind of get back into the swing of it by the third flight and it'll just be normal again.
Yeah, I think so. I did also miss a connection on that trip for the first time in my life.
What?
I have
How is that
never missed a connection before.
possible?
I don't know. I've been so
Wow.
lucky to never miss a connection, but I missed a connection.
Oof. Good
Yeah,
times.
it was not great,
Well, that's gotten
but
so much harder over the last 10 years, even just because there just isn't a lot of extra capacity. They fly everything at
yeah.
110%. And so you miss a connection. It used to be, oh, just wait an hour. Now it's, well, we can get you there next Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a situation where I was gonna either like it was in Salt Lake City.
Oh,
It
okay.
was originally like it was like a 36-minute connection. Like it was
Oh,
really,
that is
really, really
tight.
tight.
Yeah.
It was very tight. I should have known better. I should not have booked a connection that tight. But I wanted to go home,
Yeah.
and the answer was we can fly you out tomorrow morning. And I super did not want to stay in Salt Lake City overnight,
Mhm.
or we can fly you to MSP
Oh, yeah.
and you can get to Memphis via MSP. And I was like,
Sure.
okay, can I do it in first? Like, because if I can do it in first, I don't care.
Right.
Like,
Right.
sure, that's just more time for me to have airplane margaritas.
Oh, I do vaguely miss alcohol on airplanes. Yeah. But it's
I
not
I only specifically miss Delta's airline margaritas.
okay.
That's
Yeah.
it.
All right. I've spent a lot of hours on Delta hardware. I don't believe I've ever had one of their margaritas. So now you've given me something
I
else I'm gonna have to try next time I'm on an airplane, which I guess will be this fall.
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Although I got to admit, I kind of haven't minded being home during this whole process because you know I, we're lucky enough that our job just meant I stare at a screen instead of getting on an airplane, and
Yeah,
it's kind of nice when you have like I had a 6 a.m. presentation last week, and it's kind of nice when I was like, okay, I get up at 5 and I do my thing, and then okay,
go
I'm
back to
done.
bed.
Like yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of handy as opposed to well, if I would have done that event in person, then I would have had to fly over there, and so that would have been a day over and a day there and a day, and then a day, like it would have
yeah,
been like 4 days. Like it's kind of
would have been a
better.
whole thing.
Yeah, it would have been a whole
I
thing.
I did find though that like at first in the pandemic, I was doing way more work than I should have to try to
Mm,
like justify my job, to try to
right,
like justify my existence and
right.
compensate for the fact that I couldn't travel. So I gave, I think, like 85 talks last year,
Yeah,
which is absolutely
it's a
ridiculous.
lot.
I burned out pretty spectacularly in like October and had like a
Sure,
full scale meltdown.
sure.
Because that's not, that's not sustainable. That's not reasonable.
No.
Before the pandemic, I still think I was working too much,
Hmm.
but I was artificially limited by the fact that we had to fly places.
Right,
So I couldn't do more than like 3 conferences a month if I wanted to actually see my husband ever,
right, right.
you know?
It does help to
So
have an understanding spouse to do this line of work, though. That seems
it
to be a
does.
requirement.
It does. Yeah. You absolutely, you have to.
Yeah,
Um, I think I will do less when travel reopens. Like I'm willing to do one international and one domestic conference a month.
sure.
Uh, and other than that, like we've proven that like digital content is also effective.
Right.
In fact, just me like shit posting on Twitter is actually like pretty effective as a
Yeah,
marketing
yeah.
tool for whoever employs me.
Agree,
So
agree. No, I think I'm with you. I suspect there's going to be less, but I think it's because we're going to choose to do less. I think
yes,
the era of spending, you know, doing moonshots twice a year, I don't think that's going to be the
yeah,
norm.
that's no. I mean, I think some of us will go very hard in the beginning just because we miss travel. Like
Yes,
I know I will because
yes,
I'll be at KubeCon and then I'll be at DevOps UK where I plan on taking a few days off to go see some
totally.
friends that live there. Then I'll be at DevOps Days Zurich, and like it's gonna be rough for a couple of months, but
Sure.
then it's once I get that out of my system, it'll
They'll settle down.
slow down. Yeah, for sure.
So how have you been doing with the pandemic? I mean, I feel like we're, kind of on a downward slope now. Things are getting better. I had a bike ride with a buddy yesterday. We're both
Hmm.
vaccinated, and it was nice to like see him in the flesh. Although at the end it was this weird like, do we we hug? Do we shake? Do we fist
Yeah.
bump? I mean, like, what do we do now? And it's like, oh, I'm glad it's early in the morning and no one's watching. So
Yeah, not knowing how to interact with people in person has been weird. I don't know. I like I said earlier, I am a terminally online basement dwelling neckbeard, so I actually don't mind spending all of my time indoors scrolling Twitter or playing video games
yeah,
at all. But I do. There was a time where I hadn't yet figured out how to hang out with friends on Zoom and
sure,
just like and not have it feel awkward. And that time was very lonely.
yeah,
But I have gotten over that now, and also now I can see people in person, so that's better. But the first time somebody hugged me, other than my husband, I straight up cried like immediately.
yeah.
Like it was intense and
Mm-hmm.
weird,
Mm-hmm.
but it does feel like things are mostly coming to an end. Like Seattle is well over 70% vaccinated now,
Awesome.
so all of our restrictions lift at the end of the month. We've been going out to eat, we've been going to bars, we try to do that outdoors if at
Mm-hmm.
all humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
I spent most of yesterday deeply hungover because we went out for oysters the night before that,
Oh,
and it just kind of, escalated from there,
things got out
as
of
it
control. I
does.
understand. I
Things,
understand.
things got out of hand.
Yeah, yeah. It escalated quickly, but yeah.
It did, boy, that escalated quickly. That really got out of hand fast. Yeah, it did.
Uh,
Can't say whether or not it was worth it, but
it still feels weird though, doesn't it?
it
I
does. It feels extremely weird. It's like at first, when you go out and you are still sober, it is very uncomfortable. Like
mm-hmm,
I'm like trying to make myself small.
mm-hmm,
I'm anxious at all times, and then I get about 3 drinks in me, and it starts to feel less weird.
right.
But yeah, it's still very, I don't know how long I don't know if it's ever going to feel normal again. I think we're
Yeah.
all like we're collectively traumatized,
Oh, 100%.
and I really don't know if it's ever going to go completely away. um I will say I would like people to stop trying to shake my hand. That's a thing that I would like to
I'm okay with
stay
that not
from the
being a thing.
pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't shake my hand,
Fist
please.
bump, elbow bump. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, give me an elbow, like that's fine. Give me a fist bump. Dude, please stop trying to shake my hand.
well,
And Lord,
but
don't hug me at
I think this is
conferences.
part of our occupational hazard though, because there are few things more miserable than being sick while you're on the road. And
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I have kind of always been like a compulsive hand washer when it comes to this
Yep.
job.
Oh,
And
I
so
mean,
in
I
it,
always carried like hand sanitizer because of
right?
all of the touching people.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's all that handshaking, and then I'm very discreetly like, don't use that hand, don't use that hand, don't use that hand. Okay, good, go wash your hands. And
Yeah.
I realize that's maybe a little paranoid, but having been sick while in a foreign country, it sucks, and
It sucks. And you have to just get up there and do the
you
presentation,
have to do
even though
your
you
job.
feel like actual death.
Uh-huh.
Like you flew all the way there. The
Yeah,
conference can't replace you on short
right,
notice. Like
right.
you got to do it.
Hmm.
And that sucks. I think I
Yeah,
have canceled a talk once ever.
mm,
And it was virtual. Like I canceled a virtual talk and I showed up to tell them that I had canceled and brought a replacement. You
yeah,
can't do that at an in-person conference in a
right,
foreign country.
right.
So yeah, it's that is the thing I would like to stay on.
Yeah, I agree with
Handshakes.
you
Don't
on that
touch
front.
me.
I don't need to shake your hand anymore. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
We'll see though.
is there a place you're super excited about getting back to? Is there a city that you're like, God, I haven't been there in 16 months and wild horses
Yeah.
couldn't drag me away?
So Lenaro Connect's next event will be in Budapest,
Oh,
and I used to live there. So I would very, very much like to go back. Those bathhouses absolutely slap. Lenaro Connect is a very fun conference. It is 5 days long, and I will, of course, get there 2 days early
sure.
for jet lag.
Oh, yeah. It's the only responsible thing to do.
It's, yeah, to get over my jet lag in a bathhouse. So
Seems
I'm
reasonable.
extremely looking forward to that. I am interested in whatever conference will get me to Paris. So if you are a conference organizer in Paris, call me. I don't actually like London all that much as a
Okay.
city, but it is going to probably be my first in-person conference. So, oh no, because KubeCon is before that. But I'm very, very excited for that because it'll be my first international conference.
Heck yeah.
Very excited for that. I have friends that live there and friends that live nearby, so I'm probably just gonna like rent a car
Nice.
and do the English countryside thing.
God, you're brave to drive that part of the world. I'm convinced that there are certain cities that if you did not grow up driving there, that you learned to drive in that city, you
That
can't
you
do
can't
it.
do it.
Like Boston is one of those, quite frankly.
Oh, I've never tried to drive in Boston,
Oof,
uh,
oof, dangerous.
but
I was so happy when
uh,
the ride sharing apps showed up because then I never had to rent a car again. I've
fair.
never enjoyed renting cars. I still have this panicky moment of flying into must have been Reagan at like midnight basically. And this was back when we used to print out our directions, kids. And
MapQuest.
yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure I used MapQuest on that one. But then the nice gentleman at the thing's like, hey, would you want a GPS for your car? I'm like, yeah. And so I like drove around rural Virginia seemingly for an hour until I found this hotel. And I was just like, I don't know how I got here. And it was very scary and confusing. I drove by a lot of very nice houses, but it's just this weird, like, how did I get here? And there's always that weird turn, at least for me, coming out of Reagan. It's like I always go the wrong way and then realize that I made a mistake. So now I don't deal with any of that. I just press a button and a car
That's
shows up
fair.
and I hop in. But
See,
but
I love road trips though. Like
sure.
I deeply love road trips. I don't mind getting lost.
Okay.
So that's a thing that I super super enjoy. Like when we moved to Seattle from Atlanta, we drove from Atlanta to Memphis, dropped my cats off with my dad so that he could have them shipped up, and then just drove
Nice.
clear across the country instead of like shipping all of our crap and flying like normal people.
But there is
We
some stuff in the western states that I just didn't even know was there until I drove across it. The
yeah,
the
it's
elevation change and I mean, the Rockies are there. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a lot more going on there than I ever anticipated, and there's some really really cool things out there that you miss when you fly over it.
yeah, I mean, like we moved in October, and in October it's still like it's still pretty warm in the
Hmm.
South. Like it can easily still be in the 80s in the South in October. And Michael didn't take into account that we were going to be driving up north and that
Uh
we would be at elevations of
huh.
8,000 feet
Uh-huh.
or whatever going through the mountains. So when we like got into the Rockies and it was like snowing, he didn't bring a jacket like at all. Like there
Mm.
was no jacket
Uh-oh.
for him in the car. So there's this picture of him in we were in Yellowstone, and he's like hunched over, wrapped up in a Nightmare Before Christmas blanket, like kind of like waddling through Yellowstone
That's
because he
awesome.
wanted to see it, but
Right.
he didn't have a jacket, didn't take
Wasn't
it into account.
prepared.
And that's an easy thing to forget because
Of
America's
course.
big.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're seeing that here. We talked on the pre-show about that, but Minnesota went from it was hotter here than it was in Austin for a stretch of times, and
Yeah.
now it's like cold-ish. And so I feel a little bad because my kids at scout camp and has very little warm clothing with him, and it's supposedly going to be like 39 tonight. So fingers crossed he gets the message through the adults there that you need to go to the trading post and buy a blanket or something. I don't even know what he's going
Yeah.
to be able to get, but I don't know.
Well, I'm sure he's got a
He'll live.
good sleeping
Oh
bag.
yeah,
Like
I
he'll be
mean
fine.
he should be okay. And I've noticed the kids don't really feel cold the way we adults do. He doesn't seem to
Hmm.
mind winter the way I do. I mean, I'm over winter. I'm done with winter. I'm ready to move
You're
south.
not here for it.
Oh God, no. Those are the worst time for me is that sort of late November through into early March when it's just like, what's the weather going to do to me now? And
Yeah,
that's
it's
when I
February for
become
me.
the basement dweller.
I love winter until about February.
Yeah, it gets a little
And
old
by
then.
February, I'm like, please God,
Yeah,
like my kingdom for a single ray of sunshine.
ready to move on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ready to get it over with. But like we went on our honeymoon to Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, during the dead of winter. Like we went in December. And in Norway and Sweden, people were less like, "What is wrong with you?"
Right.
But in Iceland, everybody was like,
Right.
"You need help.
This
Like,
is
what are you
not when
doing?
people come here.
This is not the time to visit Iceland." And we were like,
Right.
"The snow and the darkness, and it's so cold. Like, this is novel for us. We're from the
Sure.
south."
Sure. Sure.
So it was different, but
Yeah, see it.
it was fun.
As a Minnesotan, I don't feel the need to go to those places in January. Like I know I did a conference in I think Sweden in January, and I thought, yeah, I don't need to do that again. Like
Oh, was it the DevOps conference?
I
Because that's in
can't
Stockholm in
remember.
January.
I don't know. My mind isn't what it used to be. I'd have to go back and look at the pictures, I guess. But there, well, I remember one year we had an early spring in Minnesota. All the snow was gone, and then we went to a conference in either Norway or Sweden. I can't remember which, and landed, and there was snow again, and I was so depressed. I'm like, I just left this. It was gone, and now it's back. Like, please, dear God, no. And I keep waiting,
Yeah.
and I know they would never do this because the weather is very nice and nobody would stay indoors. But could we have that conference in like June? Is that possible? Because I'd love to visit your country in June. I hear it's lovely. Oh
That's
well.
fair. I mean, even in the summer in Iceland, it does not get warm,
Yeah,
really. Like it doesn't snow, but it's
sure,
not really any warmer than like 65 or 70
sure.
there, even in the summer, which is that's ideal for me. I
I'm
love that.
okay
I would
with
move to
that.
Iceland in a heartbeat. I
Yeah,
would absolutely move to Iceland in a heartbeat.
70 is wonderful. I don't need 95. I'm not a big fan of 25,
That's fair.
you know.
Well, I'm a big fan of 25 if I'm sitting outdoors in a volcanic hot spring.
Totally. Totally.
Like
It's all the
that's
context.
and you know what? And even then I want below zero, actually. Like the
Oh,
colder the better,
okay. But
which
it's
you
the
can also
getting
have.
to and from the hot spring that can be
Mm,
painful.
that's difficult, except for at the Blue Lagoon in
Okay.
Iceland, because there's
Okay.
like part of it, they built like a little part of the room over the entrance to the hot springs. So you just like you go through these like glass doors, you get into the water indoors and then
Oh, smart.
swim out. Yeah.
Smart.
Uh, yeah, it is a problem at the hot springs up north by like Lake Mevaten.
Hmm.
Then you are like running through the cold, unprotected to the hot spring, but it's still fun.
Have you ever done like the polar plunge kind of thing, or where you go from the sauna to we
Oh,
chisel the hole
that.
in the ice?
Oh God, yes, I love that actually. The bathhouses in Budapest have that. It's
Really?
pretty common to have
Okay.
a pool that's like at Rudish, I think. There's a pool that's 41 Celsius and a pool that is 7
Hmm.
Celsius.
Hmm.
And
I'll get your
so
attention.
yeah, so the idea is that you spend like 2 minutes in the one that's 41 degrees, and then you jump into the cold plunge pool and you stay in there for 30 seconds. And then you go to like the more normal, like 36
The
Celsius
moderate.
pool.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it feels really, really good.
Okay.
It's the temperature difference is so extreme that it doesn't really register as cold. You're just like numb
Sure.
immediately.
Sure.
So it's good if you have an injury. If you have like a
Oh
sports
yeah.
injury,
Yeah.
it's fantastic for that.
Well, I mean,
So
as a basketball player, I'm sure at some point you sprain an ankle and then you get to go dip your foot into the frozen tub for 20 minutes.
yeah,
So yeah. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like I've taken enough intentional ice baths due to sports
Right.
injuries,
Right.
so
Although the
I'm
one the
used
one
to
I
it.
never understood is, I remember in college, a lot of our running backs would put their whole body in the ice bath up to like their necks. And that's where I just thought, like, I don't mind putting a limb in or even my whole leg or something, but when you're just putting the whole body in there, it's like that doesn't look fun.
Yeah, the only way I can do that is the like hot to cold plunge
Yeah.
pool thing because you
Yeah.
are like you're jumping straight in and your whole body is like way overheated because a
Nice.
41-degree pool is extremely hot. But just like no, like casually filling the bathtub with ice water,
Mm.
I no thank you. The only
Mm-mm.
other time that's felt good to me was when I was doing I was running a Tough Mudder,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the obstacles is swimming through an ice bath, but it's like 3/4 of the way through like this like 5-10 kilometer long obstacle course, and by then you are miserable and
Right.
hot
Right.
and in pain, and that obstacle
Mm-hmm.
feels really
Great.
good
Right.
at that
Right.
point. Like
It's
you're
it's
gonna have to
it's
drag
there
me
for
out
a
of it.
reason. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
Our lacrosse says it's a cold dunk is great when you don't have air conditioning. So
Hmm.
I agree with that, right? You know, jumping into the lake when it's hot, sure, I'm down for that. But to do that deliberately, okay.
Yeah, it's not for me.
No.
I'm a little bit too dramatic and bougie for that now.
Now, I want to loop back on this because when you hopped on the call, my wife was glancing over my shoulder and she says, "Oh, cute hair." Um, so
Thank
you
you.
only wear black and white, and your
Hmm.
hair is definitely neither.
Yeah, it's the not wearing color thing is because my hair is always some kind of
Got it?
bright color, and I don't want to have to like coordinate
Oh,
my
sure,
wardrobe
sure,
to my hair. Black and white look good with everything.
totally.
So it's just it's not something I want to deal with. Like,
Gotcha.
so if you or your company is trying to send me free stuff, I'm not going to wear it if it is not black
It would clash.
because
Totally.
it will clash with my hair. And I just like I'm not going to bother maintaining a wardrobe to make sure it doesn't clash with my hair. This was it hasn't always been orange. It's been red, it's been blue, it's been teal. So it's just
Let the
right now it's
muse take you.
orange. Yeah. Unfortunately, the orange has become part of my like public persona. So I think at this point, if I
Oh,
changed the color, people would freak out the same way that like purple hair is Ian's thing.
oh, okay.
So regrettably, I think it is stuck orange for a while unless I want to deal with a bunch of like angry people on Twitter.
But
But
it's your it's you, it's your brand. I mean, you can do
yeah,
what you want. I mean,
I can.
you
And I mean,
know,
the orange
if
looks
you
good on
like
me.
it,
So
cool. Yeah,
yeah, I will get sick of it eventually and like
sure,
dye it green or
sure.
something.
Right, right.
But the fact that I will eventually do that is why I don't buy clothing that's not black or white.
Got it. Got it.
Because yeah, I don't want to have to deal with replacing my wardrobe every time I change my hair color.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I guess I had not looked at it through that lens. Mostly because I don't think I'm particularly good at color coordinating. I always try to make sure on those rare occasions I leave the house that my wife has at least glanced at me before I leave to make sure I didn't do something really atrocious. You know, and
Sure.
there's been a few times I'm like, well, if I bought those shorts, like, what would I wear with it? You know, because I'm not particularly skilled at that. And I admit, like, I'll ask her, should I wear this hat or this hat? She's like, I don't care. I'm not gonna be with you. I'm like, well,
Yeah,
thanks.
my husband has a horrible bucket hat.
Okay.
It's bright orange and yellow, like gradient
Okay.
bucket hat. I hate
Sure.
it. I
Can't miss him.
hate it. Yeah, cannot miss him. Cannot miss him. I hate that hat so much. And he will wear it in public, like without
Mm,
shame. It looks
mm,
ridiculous,
mm.
but I'm convinced at this point that he does it just because he knows that I hate that hat.
Could the
So
hat have an unfortunate mishap? Could it go missing?
it could. I
Yeah.
know where it is right
Uh,
now. So the step one is moving it because he also knows where it is.
right.
Step one is moving it
Right.
so that he stops seeing it, and then maybe
Yeah.
like slowly I can consider
Right.
throwing it away
Like,
without telling him. Now I would not actually do that to him,
I haven't
but
seen it. I don't know what you're
I
talking
don't
about.
know. It's like weaning your child off of their like security blanket, you
Right.
know?
Right.
It's one of those. This is his security bucket hat.
Yeah. That's understandable. That's understandable. So I am the shirt I did wear specifically for you because I know I saw one morning you sent out a tweet about getting up incredibly early to start the coals and
Hmm.
so I wanted to dive into that a little bit before we call it a day since it's lunchtime for
Sure.
me and we haven't hardly talked about food. So what's all that about? What were you cooking?
I was smoking a pork shoulder. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. We host the World Championships. So, look, I will always give Texas brisket. That
Yeah,
is
it's good
y'all's.
eats.
It's y'all do that best. We are not good at that in Tennessee. In fact, barbecue restaurants in Memphis, I'm pretty positive only have brisket on the menu to tell if you're a tourist or not,
Sure,
because locals would not order it.
sure.
What we are extremely good at is smoking pork shoulder and ribs,
Okay.
which we do differently than everywhere else. Our ribs are dry. We do not put sauce on our ribs. We use a dry rub.
Yeah,
for them. So you get this like nice, really, really thick, dry bark. It's incredible.
I'm here for it.
And our pork shoulder, we heavily prioritize the pork shoulder itself tasting good. You should not need sauce with it.
Okay.
Like personally, I don't put sauce on my pulled pork when I smoke it. But my family has competed in the world championships
Heck
for a
yeah.
long time, so I'm actually quite good at it. I'm not quick to brag about things, but this is one thing that I'm very sure that I'm very good at.
Nice.
So I was up at the ass crack of dawn to start the smoker to make pork shoulder and drink a 30 rack of Coors Light.
That a girl. Yeah,
That's
I very lightly dipped my toe in that thanks to Paul. He
hmm?
convinced me to buy a PK 360, and so I've
Jesus, that's an expensive smoker to start
it
with, but
is,
okay.
but I needed to replace my grill too. So
Oh,
you know,
okay.
it
Well,
does
then
double
it
duty,
does
and
both. Yeah,
it has been a huge step up for me from that perspective.
for sure.
So I've done a few tri tips, and again, thanks to Paul, I found out that about 8 miles from my house is a butcher that has Wagyu.
Mm,
So I can neither confirm nor deny that there are Wagyu steaks in my fridge right now, just waiting to be grilled later today.
nice. Can I come
And
over?
absolutely, I mean, I'll send you photos of the tri-tip. You know, I have been
Yeah,
trying to entice Paul, and I know I'm going to show him the steaks at some point and say this is all your fault, because it's an expensive thing to get into too. You know,
it is.
you hop into the Wagyu store and you realize, like, when the first time I ever did the Wagyu steaks, this will be the second time. I told my kid, I said, don't get used to this, because these are expensive, you know, but
Yeah,
so good.
yeah.
So, but he wants me to make ribs, so I'll have to, you know, ask you how to do that at
Sure.
some point. You'll have to give me the inside scope on that, because I've never done that before. I feel pretty good about tri tips, but you know,
Happy to.
it's always a little bit of an adventure. So I'll have
Yeah,
to.
ribs are pretty difficult to screw up,
Oh, I like that.
honestly. So
That's right in my wheelhouse.
yeah, just make sure you remove the silver skin before you
Heard
smoke
about that.
them.
Yep.
Yeah, because some people don't, and like one that prevents flavor from actually like getting into your meat. Two, it is really hard to remove that afterwards. Like you're
Okay.
going to mangle the rack.
Gotcha.
So easiest way for me is like just like get some of it up with like a paring knife and then grab it with a kitchen towel and just like rip it straight off.
Sure. Sure.
So that's number one most important thing. And I will always tell you to smoke them to do dry. I don't like wet ribs, but
Okay.
that's because I grew up in Memphis and that is what we do.
Totally
If
fine.
you like Kansas City style or Carolina style ribs, you want barbecue sauce.
I'll try them all. I'm equal opportunity carnivore.
Yeah, good. And I'm not actually an elitist about it. However you enjoy smoking meat, however
Yeah.
you get smoked meat that
Yeah.
you think tastes good is fine. Like I do things in a very competition style way. Um, but that's me.
Sure.
You know, like I don't inject my meat because that's illegal in competitions.
Okay.
I use a vertical offset boring smoker. But if you have a like fancy pellet smoker and you want to inject your meat, like go
Knock
for
yourself
it.
out. Yep.
Please do
Yep.
it. As
Oh,
long
that's
as it's
awesome.
happy for you.
That's right. As long as you enjoy it, that's the most
Yeah.
important thing. Oh man. Well, I could probably talk to you about food and technology and other things for hours, but I've already kept you longer than I intended to, and for that I
That's
apologize.
okay.
But
No, it's
thank
fine.
you so much for hanging out with me, Kat. This has been a blast, and I'm glad we managed to make this happen. And I'm guardedly optimistic that I'll see you in the real world sometime later this year or next. So
Yeah, I
looking
think you
forward to it.
will. I'll
Yeah,
be around.
excellent,
So
excellent. And I hope that we can gather over a cup of coffee or a drink or both. I don't know, whatever. I'm down for it. So
yeah, let's.
all right. Well, thank you very much. So next week we'll be back with Mr. Gibb. Spencer Gibb will be joining me, and we'll see what kind of trouble he and I get into. But until then, thanks everybody, and we will see you next week.